let's inside baseball some X-Men 97 because that's what
Ooh,
these people are here to listen to us talk, except for those that just, want to hang out with our bubbling personalities.
everyone's welcome.
Not bubbling, bubbly,
Bubbly.
bubbly. So X-Men 97 came out finally. I think what did Disney, I mean, felt like once Disney Plus came out, they announced this, what, like 3 or 4 years ago? Wasn't this one of the first like kind of announcements of shows coming to Disney Plus once Disney Plus opened?
I think you had like that first wave of shows that was like, WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier and Loki and all those things were announced. But then like they did a second wave. And I
Okay.
think the second wave of shows, X-Men was in there, along with like a Spider-Man homecoming style animated show that never really took hold. I don't know if that got canceled or delayed, but that was something they were talking about. And so whatever that second wave of shows was, it's now been a couple years since we've known they were going to do this show.
Mhm.
And the thing that excited everyone the most about it, I mean, we've talked about it a little, but it's an X-Men animated show. But not only that, it's a continuation of the X-Men animated series from the 90s that ended in 97, hence being called X-Men 97. Like it's picking up right where that show
Mhm.
ended. So I think that's why we've been excited for the show since announcement. So yep, it's finally here.
Well, plus it's kind of almost picked up because they ran a X-Men 97 comic series after that show got canceled to kind of keep it going. But I believe, if I remember correctly from the limited issues I read of that, they almost like went back and basically started retelling. Like I remember reading volume one of that X-Men 97 book and it basically being like the pilot and like the first handful of episodes. So I don't
Mm.
know if they necessarily ever reached this point in which they were actually continuing or telling new stories. Uh,
Yeah.
but I thought that was interesting. But yeah, X-Men 97, like you said, the show got picked up. And I know Kevin Feige basically told them when they pitched it to him, he said, I have two requirements for this to happen. One, you have to have the same theme song. And two, you have to have the same voice cast.
Or as
So,
close to that as possible, right? Yeah.
yeah, as close as possible. Obviously, there are exceptions. And not
Mm.
everybody's the same, but also you've had, what is it, 20 years almost of people change.
Sure.
No, shit, 30? Is it 30 years? No. Oh,
97.
17. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
20,
30
20.
years. Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm old now.
Pushing 30 years. Yeah.
Well, that's depressing. Now I'm just sad.
Now we feel old.
Yeah, when the 90s are 30 years ago, that's kind of weird. But anyway,
Well,
X-Men 97. Let's talk about this cartoon more, Don.
I do have to say, just those two requirements you just threw out there, both welcome and I think necessary requirements if you were going to do this. Um, because the voice acting, we'll talk about it, is important that a lot of the voices sound the same that we remember. Like it enhances that as nostalgia. The show would not feel the same if it was a bunch of new voice actors, I don't think. But because we have like, oh my God, Beast sounds like Beast, Wolverine sounds like Wolverine, they all are there. It just adds to it. And then just like the theme song, dude, first time that thing hit when I turned on episode one, I was just like, oh, just like a breath of fresh. Like it has little tweaks to it. It's not 100% identical, but like the heart of it is there, and it's
Yeah.
the same song, and like the same opening credits. They even added a couple people. Like they threw a Morph in there, and Bishop. I don't think he was ever in the beginning.
No,
And
yeah.
then once you get a couple episodes in, like now Magneto has his own character card too, and it's just like some of them though are taken straight from the old cartoon. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like this is perfect. Like
Mm-hmm.
probably the best between X-Men and Batman the Animated Series, like the best two opening theme sequence video for a cartoon ever in our lifetime, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily. They're iconic in what they are. There's a reason why for the past 30 years you can find all different kinds of people covering the X-Men theme song on different instruments.
Uh,
It's just, and every time you hear it, you're just like, man, that was a banger, like all the way. Like
and just
you'll
like,
forget about it, but then once you hear it again, you're just like, "Ugh."
but like, I even hear that song when I'm reading X-Men comics. Like when they're fighting and stuff in X-Men comics and I'm reading, sometimes I'm just like, dee 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 just like it goes with them. It's just part of that. It's just part of that lore.
Never done that. I've never put a soundtrack to my comic book reading.
Next time you're reading X-Men, just start
Oh,
singing it or put it on your phone on repeat and just like
it's inevitable. Like I can't even. It's
uh,
inevitable now that that's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to read an X-Men comic again for the rest of my life without hearing this song. But
well, glad I could
and
help.
yeah, and part of me is happy about that. I wish you would have told me this 30 years ago. Read a lot of X-Men comic books without that song in my head for some reason. So as we said, this is just launched on Disney Plus a couple weeks ago. They did the first 2 episodes, did episode 3, and now we're here to talk about it. What was nice is it was a continuation of the X-Men 97, but really the only thing that you kind of really needed to know was that at the end of X-Men, when it went off the air in in 97, was that Charles Xavier, Professor X, was killed.
Yes.
And this was picking up after that.
Yeah. And which, to be honest, I don't even know if I really knew that, because let's be honest, if this show started in like 91, 92 and went till 97, in 1997, we were like, 14, 15. I kind of wasn't watching it the same way.
Yeah.
So like, not saying it was news to me. I'm sure I kind of picked it up somewhere along the line, but yeah, I guess that is a big thing that you would want to know going into X-Men 97. So they did pick up right there.
Yeah. So it was definitely, it was cool that I didn't have to sit here and binge 5 seasons of this show to get ready for this. Like, okay, Professor X is dead. We're moving on without him. That's kind of really the highlight of what you need to know to jump into this. So, I mean, even as a new fan, or if someone's listening out there who's never watched X-Men, but maybe you're interested in jumping into this show, you don't necessarily have that barrier to entry that you might think.
Sure.
So that was definitely kind of cool. So overall, Don, what do you think about X-Men 97 now that you're taken in, acquired 3 episodes, Chief?
Yeah, 3 episodes in, and I'm digging it, man. I think I agree with the people out there who are giving this glowing reviews, and it's like one of the first Disney Plus shows to get like perfect ratings across the board, and like Rotten Tomatoes scores of 100 or 99 or whatever, like whatever the scoring system is for television. But everybody seems to love it, and I agree. I think it's great. I think it's like, it's giving me all the nostalgia feels for X-Men, like one of my favorite cartoons growing up. But at the same time, it's reminding me why like animated superhero stuff is so great, and why we loved this show and Batman, and fast forward to today, why we love Invincible, and just like they just can tell stories, I don't know, just differently. It just kind of hits different, and it's not all nostalgia, but that has a lot to do with it. But also this show is just reminding me why I like the X-Men so much too, like why they were my first love of a superhero team. It's like a team show, and you just love the team dynamic. I love when superhero teams work as like a family and all live under one roof. Like, it's just, the animation style is really cool. They kept the heart of the 97 show. They didn't change it or tweak it too much. I know that's one of the reasons why, you and I, maybe against other people, didn't like What If as much, just because something about that generic look of it. And I'm glad they didn't do something like that with this.
Yeah.
I'm glad they kept like I read somewhere like the animators or something were saying they had to like dial back today's technology, because like in order to make it look that way, they had to like go back a few steps as to what is possible today animating stuff. But like, I'm so glad they did and made it look the way they did. It would not be the same show if it was like all rendered and computer animated and like CG or whatever. It's just like, it has that feel.
Yeah. Take advantage of the technology today to make it look like that.
Right.
Like it back to the day. So hopefully it's not as hard. It's not harder, but you can still make it pop more than you probably could then, or at least easier, I would hope.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really good. I like all the characters. Always loved all the characters on the show. I like the, it's doing its own thing also, because obviously like now Magneto's involved with the team, and there's some different storylines going that have different themes. I just really I love how like the first couple episodes they're ending on cliffhangers. Like that was something X-Men always did, like ends on a wait till next week. See you next week, kids, on X-Men. You know, they're still doing that. So yeah, I've been having a great time with it so far. I'm really into it. You know, it's a show that I'm going to prioritize watching when it comes out, just because it's just been super fun so far. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna agree with you on a lot of that. A lot of those points. Surprise, surprise. It really just it feels great to be back watching this. And what I really enjoy about it, almost more than I was expecting, was that they almost, yes, it's like a continuation of X-Men '97, but they're almost like, okay, the people who want to watch this are 40 now. So yeah, I got a dog hanging out in the background. You're not on YouTube. You didn't see the dog walk by.
Go on YouTube to see Chris's dog, guys.
But like, this is written. It's almost like aged up, where they're actually being a little bit more mature. Like it's still a cartoon, but it's almost like some of the storylines are a little bit more adult. They've actually, I think, in episode 3 swore a little bit. Like they're a little bit violent. That third episode was kind of scary. You know, like there were some moments where if you're watching this as a kid, they wouldn't have done it back then. But now, because of like where we are in today's society, they can, and just almost felt like they're just like, hey, this is a love letter to you kids who grew up in the 90s, and we're going to make this for you. And I know that that's kind of what it is, but I wasn't expecting it to be like that. I thought it was just going to be more of the same. And I really feel like they're trying to make it different. So having the episodes kind of connect, which X-Men I kind of always did, but I feel like they're doing it a little bit more. I'm sure we'll have some one-offs, but I've really enjoyed these first 3 a lot more. I can't say it more than I thought, because I was really hoping that I would, but I've been pleasantly surprised and super happy about what they did.
Yeah, totally agree. I agree on the fact that it is a love letter kind of to us, but they're making it also accessible to maybe a newer generation of fans. But really, it is for like, it's a thank you for loving this show for decades.
Yeah,
all you 40-year-olds, kind of like what you said. You know, because now the show's kind of like, yeah, we grew up with you, so we're gonna have these same characters in adventures, like addressing themes that we didn't address in the 90s show because we were on Fox Saturday morning. Now we're, now we're on a streaming
Fox
service.
Kids block.
Yeah, now we're on Saturday, or not Saturday mornings, but now we're on a streaming service. You can kind of just like, watch this with your tweens if you got them, but like maybe not little kids after episode 3. I agree that episode was heavy, kind of.
A little bit. There were some definitely like, there were some heavy themes that they were touching on in there. And if they kind of push a little bit heavier into some of these things, we could really kind of have some serious conversations coming out of this show. You mentioned it, so I'm going to bring it up because I know I saw a lot of people saying this was a missed opportunity. Was it a missed opportunity to not air this on Saturday mornings? Shouldn't these episodes be dropped on Saturday morning? Like, it's just a fun quirk little thing. You obviously can sit and wait until Saturday, and I saw a lot of people said they were doing that.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like the difference is it being on a streaming service, you can watch it anytime. So if you want to watch it Saturday mornings, you are more than welcome to.
But online doesn't let us get away spoiler free.
That's true. That would have been, that could have been fun. But
it's just a funny thing. I mean, even for those first 2 episodes, if they would have just dropped them. Yeah. That would have been fun. Anyway, where were we?
Where were we? I know we mentioned the voice cast a little bit, but is that like something that you really appreciate? Yeah.
I mean, bringing back those characters, some of them sound a little different. Obviously, like we mentioned a couple times already, we're 30 years later, so everyone's voices change. Mine sounds a lot different than it did 30 years ago, so I'm assuming the voice actors did as well.
All right.
The only one that throws me off, and I feel like they're just way overboard with it, is Rogue. I don't know if I'm aware she was always like Southern, and she always
sugar.
With her sugars and stuff, but she seems just it's way too much. It's just
They, they,
so heavy.
they
It's
went over.
so
They went
much.
over. They went overboard with her euphemisms and sayings and
But
like
even the thickness of the accent is just so heavy. I'm just like,
man,
oh my God. So she kind of kills me a little bit. But outside of that, I've loved the whole cast coming back, the new styles of some of that, like I said, the looks,
yeah,
seeing them in different clothes. Gambit's, wears outfits instead of not
yeah,
always seeing them in their suit. It felt like, I mean, Wolverine would have his stock, which we got to see when they went into the club in the first
yeah,
episode,
yeah,
looking for the kid.
yeah,
His
yeah, yeah.
stock like fur brown coat and his plaid shirt that he always wore as lumberjack wear.
Like his flannel
Yeah.
coat. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's his go-to.
His go-to, I'm leaving the mansion. But I mean,
Yeah,
it seems like they all kind of have regular clothes that they're wearing and not always just in their suits. It felt like back in the day, they just always animated them in their suits no matter where they were, or, unless they
right.
had to blend in for a moment. If they were just walking around the mansion, they were wearing their suit.
Yeah,
Felt like I never
yeah.
saw Gambit outside of his typical suit.
I do like I do like that a lot of the looks are the same and that they get to be in some regular clothes like you just said, like Gambit in his little half shirt, hilarious. Even though that caused an outrage on the internet because of idiots. But
Yeah.
um yeah, a couple of the other like upgrades they did, like Storm has the mohawk, which is
Yeah.
cool. Like in
Yeah.
the 90s, she had the big white 90s hair that was like tall and out there and long. But like her mohawk is a classic comic look too, so I'm glad we get to see that.
Yeah.
Bishop got himself a nice little haircut, you know.
Yeah. He kind of lost his 90s mullet.
Right, right. So now he's just rocking the, top curls. Um, but yeah, man, everybody looks great. I think I'm with you on the rogue thing though. Like sugar, he's crazier than a chicken in a house full of foxes. It's just like all her damn whatever. Just like
It's
it's
just
too
it's just too
dial it
much.
back.
Yeah. I appreciate it, but it's just her voice sounds the most different to me
Uh,
from my memory.
yeah,
But and I just don't know if maybe that's just what it was. It's just that 90 cheesiness that's killing me, making me cringe.
yeah.
But like I said, the animation's super cool. The voice cast is super cool. Um, how do you feel about the fact that all of a sudden Cyclops now has a fan base? And after that first episode, everyone was like, holy shit, Cyclops is a beast. No pun intended.
Well, because yeah. Well, Cyclops is traditionally shit on.
Yeah.
That's
He's
his
like
thing. Like,
Aquaman of the X-Men.
yeah, nobody likes Cyclops. Him not having a huge role in the X-Men movies with James Marsden didn't help that. Like, I always kind of thought Cyclops was cool. Like, once they started playing with that character,
Mm-hmm.
like years later after the 90s, Cyclops is a badass a lot of
Yeah.
the times. Like I don't know, once he got out of that 90s suit with his blue hair coming out of the top, and he's kind of like the guy who believes in the mutants the most and like goes to certain lengths and doesn't mind being looked at as a villain or hated, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's always kind of just gotten the short end. So people looking at him, they are they are portraying him as cooler in this one. I don't know why. Maybe it's the fight scene he had in the first episode, which was very cool. Like he was blasting people around, and finally the optic blast was cool. It's not just a laser that blows shit up. He was like pushing villains around with it. Like it's a concussive blast, so he uses it to push people, not just like
And
blow shit
himself.
up. Right. And then
He
like
used it as a parachute.
I was gonna say he had one of the coolest superhero landings that
Yeah.
that you're ever gonna see.
Ever.
Yeah.
You're
Uh,
never going to do it better than that.
yeah.
He was like, "Go get them." He was free falling. Their jet blew up.
Yeah.
They're all just okay, and then they're like free falling out, and he's calling out orders in midair
Uh-huh.
for the people who fly to go get these other people, and then he just free fell with no parachute, and then used his optic blast to slow him down. Like that was ridiculous.
Yeah. Finding cool different ways to use the optic blast rather than just like blowing up sentinels
Yeah.
is cool. Like make his power something different. Like let him use that in different ways. And he's been doing that so far. That's what I think. So he's finally getting his like flowers and be like, hey, is Cyclops cool? Yeah, I think Cyclops is
Oh,
cool.
and then if you doubted it in any way, they gave him 2 Jean Greys. And he's
Right?
like, yeah, I got both of these hotties.
Which one is my wife? I don't care. I have them both.
Well, he impregnated one, and then
That's
the
right.
other, then that one turns into someone else, and then he gets his old wife back. So he's like,
Yeah.
he's pulling double duty here,
You know,
back to
I,
back Jean Greys, and Wolverine still ain't got enough, neither one.
I know. Now Wolverine's the simp.
Yeah,
He's the he's the
yeah.
he's the one we're gonna laugh at. We haven't had any cool Wolverine moments really yet.
No,
But
outside
yeah,
of the one they showed in the trailer of Gambit charging his claws, and then he threw
right.
him through that Sentinel in the first episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
I'm sure
badass.
he's gonna get his time later on, but so far Cyclops is winning.
100%. I always
Yeah.
liked Cyclops. Like I had more Cyclops toys and the X-Men toys than I did. Felt like I had
Yeah.
like a Weapon X. I don't even know if I had the yellow suit Wolverine, probably because it was probably impossible to find.
I would always be Cyclops in Marvel versus Capcom or X-Men
Oh,
fighting game.
yeah, yeah.
Just because he had like, the optic blast, and then like his big power up was the big one,
That took up
like
the
that
whole
big
screen. Yeah, I hated
big
that.
blah. Yeah. Yeah.
Dudes, the idea of just being able to shoot out your eyes, I don't know, just feels like there was
Yeah.
always a cool thing. Even in the X-Men movie with James Marsden, I always thought they did it. I mean, yeah, he was kind of like you said, Boy Scout.
He was never focused on enough, I don't think. Obviously those movies were all just about Wolverine, Hugh
Yeah,
Jackman, like being the focus.
ultimately,
But
yeah.
I just felt like Cyclops never got enough screen time in those. So
Well, especially the third one, and they kill him in like the first couple of minutes,
yeah, something
so
like
he can go
that.
be in Superman Returns.
Was he?
Yeah, he was in Superman Returns. He was Lois Lane's husband in
Oh,
Superman Returns because Bryan Singer didn't do X-Men 3 and went over and did Superman Returns. So then he grabbed James Marsden and brought him over. So James Marsden was only in the beginning of X-Men 3 and got killed.
okay.
And then he
That
went to,
started to
yeah, and then he was in Superman Returns where he was almost a better Superman than Superman.
starting to ring a bell.
Yeah, because James Marsden is great,
Yeah, mostly.
mostly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, Cyclops was finally getting his flowers, which is great to see because yeah, he had some cool episodes, cool moments. But we had this first episode, we ended it with Magneto showing up and basically saying, "Charles Xavier left me all of you.
I'm the leader now.
I'm the leader of the X-Men
I'm the
now. Yeah,
captain now.
I'm the
Yeah.
captain now." And only we do that with the Schwarzenegger accent, and so everyone's like, "Why are they saying it like that?"
Oh yeah, yeah. Never seen Captain Phillips, so I don't even know what that is supposed to sound like.
That's the get the general idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Magneto is now the new Professor X, but then he's being charged with war crimes going into the second episode, so he had to go and be put on trial with the UN. Like, what kind of cartoon was this for kids?
Yeah. It had some vibes of like January 6th insurrection.
No,
On trial in front of people.
heavy January 6th, especially
Yeah.
once the anti-mutant people started busting into Congress. Like, you're
Yeah.
like, oh shit,
Yeah. That was
they're just going straight up to it.
I was like, yes, so we are dealing with more adult themes than
Yeah.
this show was in '97. But yeah, it was cool. I mean, that is based on a comic book, along with the trial of Magneto, kind of just like playing with that idea.
Yeah.
But that's also where his ridiculous looking suit comes from. It is real. It is the comics. But before I may have known that in the past, but just forgot about it. But we didn't really know. And we
Yeah.
were kind of texting back and forth how much we hate his new look.
Yeah.
And I still stand by that. Even if it is from the comic books, I just want him back in his helmet and his cape and his.
I don't need the giant M. That's like that's just ridiculous. That's like how a kid would draw him. Like, I need to put a big M on his chest so we know who he is. Like, used to have a comic book character named Bioman, and he had a giant B on his chest for Bioman. Like, that's just, I don't know. To me, it's just, I just don't like it.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I don't like the gloves that go all the way up to his shoulders. I don't like the no helmet. His helmet is the most iconic piece of his uniform and just like screams Magneto.
Yeah.
Later comic books, when he joined the X-Men, he's still in his Magneto costume. He just
Yeah.
changed the color. He's like all white or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hopefully at some point they revert him back to that suit just because it's too damn cool not to use.
Yes.
But anyway, that's my little rant on Magneto. I like playing around with ideas of him being the leader of the X-Men or trying to be the leader of the X-Men and gain their trust, and it's just something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I have to go back as we're diving before we get too far into the second episode and we're hitting these things. I got to talk about that first episode when they were going and looking for that rich dude. And they had to go find him in the club. And Jubilee dancing in the club with her firework fingers is like the greatest meme gif I've ever seen. Like, I would love every time. I just want to use that whenever someone says something that makes me happy. I just want to send her dancing with her fingers, and that just cracked me up. I just enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah,
Made me happy.
That's Roberto. That's he's Sunspot from X-Force, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was funny. Her dancing around that club with him, like, yeah, that's fun.
It just looked funny. But we're at the UN. There's the insurrection.
Uh-huh.
The anti-mutant group is trying to shoot Magneto with a gun.
Uh-huh.
And Storm took the bullet for him.
Storm took the bullet, lost her powers.
And Magneto got pissed, and he just picked up like the whole Congress and just took him up to space.
Were you expecting him to like take him out and go back to his evil ways, or?
I mean, a little.
I was too, so I was kind of surprised that he didn't. So they're keeping him as this guy he's got all this anger, but he in Charles's memory, he's trying to be, good and make a harmonious world for humans and mutants now after all these years of trying to destroy humans in Charles' honor. So that kind of, it surprised me.
I don't expect it to last forever.
No. And yes, speaking of the adult themes of episode 2 or just like where we're going with that, like the insurrection and everything, episode 3, man, I'm sitting there watching it like, am I watching a horror movie? Like the scenes when Jean's clone, who eventually becomes Madeline Pryor, who is a comic character. She is the clone of Jean Grey made by Mr. Sinister, so they're sticking to comics. But like she turned the X-Mansion into like a horror house and just like weird stuff's going on. I was like, this is TV-14 for sure.
A little bit, yeah.
And like also dealing with things, Jean's clone gives birth to their son Nathan. Cable, for those who don't know.
I was about to say I couldn't remember Cable's name, but I knew that their son was Cable. So, and then obviously at the end of this episode took him to the future, so it makes all the sense in the world that that's what they were doing. But I couldn't remember if Nathan was his name.
Yeah, so not only on top of the scary imagery you have of what's going on in the house, but then we go and we're dealing with like the loss of a child and like Cyclops struggling with giving up his child forever and never seeing again, and everyone's crying and like, man, this is some heavy thematic stuff for a X-Men show.
Not to mention the fact that they were struggling to even have Jean Grey give birth because the hospital didn't want to treat her because she was a mutant.
Yeah, all
you're just like, you're not welcome here,
Yeah, so this is definitely X-Men, but it's not necessarily for the smallest of children. It's dealing with some things that are different. Like I was thinking before, like I should tell my sister, like my 5-year-old nephew, there's an X-Men cartoon. After watching a couple of these, I was like, I don't know if this is okay for 5-year-old. He likes Spidey and Friends, not this.
Not this like Miyazaki anime style horror creatures coming out of walls with like faces and shit.
That thing did look like a Miyazaki creature. That when they opened the elevator and it was Beast looking at that thing, I was like, they totally got that from. That's inspired by Studio Ghibli or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It just screamed those anime weirdness.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was almost animated differently. Like it almost seemed like they just copied and pasted it right out of one of those movies.
A little bit.
So yeah, I loved the idea of them ending the second episode with a double Jean Grey coming, and then the third episode them figuring out where she came from. And I mean, in this like 20-minute episode, they not only figured out where she came from, they turned her into the Goblin Queen. Then they brought back
Mr. Sinister.
Then they brought back the other Jean Grey.
Yeah.
to come like fight with her mind, which was awesome. They had the fun house of horrors. They did
Mm-hmm.
a ton of shit in this episode, including then having like a post-credit scene or the last scene with Storm getting her, with
Forge.
dude Forge
Yeah.
showing up and saying, "I can help you get your powers back." Like, we're rolling
Cliffhanger.
here, man.
Cliffhanger again.
The
Yeah.
cliffhanger again.
Jean, who's been missing, and Cyclops standing in their broken bedroom, like wondering where they're gonna go from here. Like
Yeah,
he's
because he
he's
didn't know she was missing, and he knocked up another version of her.
right. So when was the last time he was really with her, and when was it the clone? Who did he marry? Who was he? Who did he have the kid with? Like
We
when
know
did the
who he had
switch
the kid
happen?
with.
Right, he had the kid with the clone, but it's like this Jean remembers that. Like, was this Jean the Phoenix? When like they even said that, like, I don't know really where you ended and I began. So they're gonna have to like fit those pieces together.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, a lot of open threads to move forward with.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I loved what we've seen. I'm so ready for episode 4, especially, and I'm going to talk about it here in a second because I just read the synopsis for it, and everything I read makes me happy. One of the other, we probably should have worked this in when we were talking about Magneto and his new look, but another character did get a new look, and this one's a little bit more drastic, and that's Morph.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Morph got a new look where he kind of looks alien in appearance. And curious what you think about the new Morph. Does that do it for you?
I think it's cool because Morph is a shapeshifter, and Morph has given us some of the coolest moments of this show so far by shapeshifting into like cameos
Yeah.
of characters you like. Like he's been Colossus and Psylocke and Spiral, and he just keeps becoming people that you're like, that's cool. Like I recognize that person.
He was the highlight of that insurrection fight where he, like you said, he was turning into Psylocke and turning into all these other characters in the mid-fight, mid-moves, and using all their powers. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, him having that face is like kind of fitting because Morph doesn't really have a identity. I am starting to think though that he or maybe they, who knows, but is just like wearing that face by choice because every time they show him talking about things and getting sad, he goes back to his face that we're used to from the original 90s cartoon. Like when he was talking about Mr. Sinister and all the shit Sinister did to him, like his face went back to that, the man's face that we know from the 90s cartoon. So it was like, is that his real face? And the gray, no details, bald face is just like what he wears by choice.
See, I thought he was. I was thinking he was going back to that face because he was remembering that was. But yeah, you're probably right because I was like, that's probably the face that he had back then. But I bet you're right that that it probably is his real face, and he just can't look at himself in the mirror, so he needs to
wear something. It. Yeah,
I can make that.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see. I think his connection with Mr. Sinister will probably be explored more in future episodes. It's even right there in the opening sequence, Morph like being scared and they show Sinister. So their connection hopefully is explored a little more.
Yeah, I believe it 100%. And I'm, as I said a few minutes ago, I'm totally here for it. Everything about this clicked for me. I don't come back to a lot of TV shows, but I'm definitely coming back to this one. And it's such a great time. We talked about it a little bit last week or a couple weeks ago. I don't know anything now, but having X-Men and Invincible back to back and being able to watch these shows and just kind of have this animation and have these superhero shows that are actually good is fun. And I know we talked about it last week was just the X-Men resurgence. And I know you mentioned a little bit in the beginning, but X-Men is like I guess Batman would probably be a first love, but X-Men is pretty damn close. And if anything, X-Men, it's got to be really got me into comics more. Like Batman, I enjoyed Batman, but X-Men got me into comics and opened up the whole other like world to me. Like Batman, I loved Batman movies, but he didn't get me to read a comic book.
Sure.
X-Men did. And to have this back, and especially in this cartoon was a big part of that. So having this cartoon back and being able to like kind of relive this as an adult, being that it's made for me, like they didn't make it as just continue it for 12-year-olds and just say the next generation. They really said, fuck the next generation. We're going to make it for, we're going to make it for you guys. And that's just awesome to me. So I'm digging it. I'm loving it. I'm ready for the next episode, which episode 4 reading the synopsis. Might be a double episode because it actually has 2 titles. But one, it's called... Huh?
You got it right in front of you, so read it to me. Let's hear it. Let's break this news.
This episode is called Motendo.
Oh.
And it's on her birthday, and nostalgic Jubilee is forced to relive the X-Men's greatest adventures when an entertainment system transports her into a 16-bit video game.
Oh.
Tell me, but it's called Motendo/Life Death. And then Life Death Part 2 doesn't happen until episode 6. So I don't really know where we're going in this.
Motendo kind of makes me think and getting into a game world makes me think Mojo.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, remember those episodes where Mojo had Mojo World and he had them doing weird games? And
I do now. 100% forgot Mojo was a thing. Except for Mojo on The Simpsons. Pray for Mojo.
Pray for Mojo.
Which is also a Mustard Plug album.
Based on that Simpsons episode.
Yeah. It's amazing how many things are based on Simpsons episodes. There's so much that wouldn't exist in this world if it wasn't for The Simpsons.
Yeah.
But I just love the idea of them being pulled into a 16-bit video game and what the hell that's going to look like.
That's very cool. Yeah, man, this show, I agree with you on everything you kind of just said. I think this may be one of Kevin Feige's biggest wins as Marvel Studios president, recognizing that bringing this show back would, affect people in this way and everyone would just be so down for this. It's a no-brainer, but the fact that he actually was able to be like, X-Men is kind of the next step of the MCU in the films, but the first way I'm going to bring them into this world is let's bring back that 90s cartoon, man, because everyone loved it. Let's continue that thing because it should have kept going back then. Let's keep telling those stories. So I totally give him props, or whoever's decision it was, to kind of
bring it to him,
to greenlight this and bring it to, and have this be our first X-Men stuff, really, that Marvel Studios is involved in. Smart decision by them. I'm totally here for it. We're going into Deadpool, Wolverine, and we've kind of dipped our toe into the water of mutants here in the MCU. So just bring on the mutants, man. I'm ready for it. Everything else, I'm not saying it's all tired and done, but I'm ready for some mutant stuff. So let's keep this party going.
Yeah, let's get some of these stories. There's obviously 60, 70 years of X-Men stories. So let's start telling these stories on the big screen. And like I said, we've kind of seen, Avengers and all that stuff through Endgame was great. But let's get to this next. What's next? And, continuing with the Avengers and trying to tell these stories just hasn't really been clicking. So yeah, let's kind of open up the archives a little bit with the X-Men and
and
get some recasting.
Endgame and Infinity War was just too high of a crescendo. Yeah. And while I appreciate a lot that's come out, not to make this a whole thing about it, but I appreciate some of the things that come out since, but you hit your high note with the Avengers. Let's hit some high notes with the X-Men. Let's have our big X-Men epic where everybody's fighting Apocalypse. How about that? How about we do that? Let's get to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know. I really, and it is a whole other conversation, and we're not going to really get into it, but I really wish they would have took a break after Endgame. I know movie studios are all about making money, and they're not like, hell no, we just made $2 billion with the movie. We're making more. But I just really wish they would have took a couple of years and just let us sit at the end of Endgame and just sit with that and really just get to a point where we crave more. And then come back with X-Men. And
this break right now is refreshing, though, to me.
Yeah.
We had Loki, and TV is a different thing, but movies, what was the last movie? Was it Guardians? No.
I don't know.
Well, that just goes to show it's been long enough that you're not hit with a new Marvel movie every 4 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the fact that there are none.
There's only one this year. It's only Deadpool.
Yeah.
That's the only one, I think.
Yeah, it is.
So it is kind of refreshing because the hype I'm gonna have when Deadpool comes around is gonna be pretty good, pretty big. One, because I just want to see that movie, and two, because we haven't, been hit over the head with too much since then. So
yeah.
I
was trying to look it up. I think you're right. I think it is Guardians from last summer. I know we had Secret Invasion in the fall, and we've had a couple TV shows and stuff. The Marvels. Marvels was
Okay. Yeah,
was
Marvels might have
Marvels
been.
last year,
Yes.
so
Okay.
Marvels would have been
Marvels was November,
okay.
but still like a few months. Like give it. It's put it this way. It feels like it's been a long time, which is a good thing. Not to have these things so close and bombarding you with 3 Marvel movies in a summer. You know what I mean?
The
So
question is, did you watch the Marvels?
no.
So that's why it's been so long.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
So yes, for you it has been Guardians.
Yeah. Okay. I got
So
you.
it has, and no, I agree with you. It feels great. So I'm looking forward to not having to go until next year without this. And like I said, let's see
Well,
what
yeah.
Deadpool. I bet you Deadpool's got a lot of tricks up its sleeve to really, hopefully, get us more excited about this multiverse thing that they're trying to do.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we have stuff like X-Men 97. So,
And we'll be here to talk about whatever they decide to do. And you don't want to miss that. So make sure you like, subscribe, and follow this show on all podcasts and social media services. We are literally everywhere at Raised Geek. Super easy to find. If you find us over on YouTube, you can watch my dog walk through the camera, which I know people love the doggos. So definitely stop by over there. We're starting to develop quite the community over there of people. So come join that conversation. You can also shoot us an email at raisethegeek@gmail.com. Let us know where you are writing in from, and we will answer your questions. I was going to say live on the air, but it's not really live. So
we are not live.
we're live
Thankfully.
to each other. So we're going to do this, but I think it's time for us to get back to March Madness and all the other sports that are taking place this Easter weekend. So happy Easter to everyone out there. Hope you had a great time, since this probably won't be released until after Easter. And I think that's going to do it for us this week. So for Raised the Geek, I'm Chris.
And I'm Don.
And thanks for checking out the show.
Where geek is all we speak.